Hi everyone, my name is Margaux and welcome back to Media Women Worldwide. This year is the silver anniversary of the Provincetown International Film Festival, 25 years of artistry and filmmaking. There were tons of filmmakers and audiences who were enjoying this great program. I had the joy of taking in lots of Q&As with the filmmakers themselves, so come take a look.
First thing, before any questions, I want to thank Portia, her daughter Rose, who are both here. Misha, also Misha, come on back. Also want to thank John Summers and his family, his son Misha, his daughter. All right, he's working on the next film.
Is there anybody else you want to bring down for the Q&A, or is it just you and me?
I think it's just us.
All right, perfect.
Portia, do you want to say anything? Because I know you're leaving soon. Is there anything you want to say?
If anyone wants to just follow my journey, you can follow me on Instagram. I'm going to make a new Facebook account. Just give me like a few days or so. I wanted to just change it to like more business type of like platform. So that's about it. Willis Runway and Portia Willis. Just look up my name. Thank you. Congratulations.
John, would you like to say anything?
I just want to say thanks for the film. I thought it was really good, very moving. I would have preferred a little bit more class warfare myself, but I thought it was just edited and shot very beautifully, and without a trace of condescension or special pleading, which is really hard to pull off in films like this. So kudos.
Well, and also, obviously, it takes a certain amount of trust. Ari is here, our co-producer, Daphne Pinkerson, our producer, Elizabeth, it takes a tremendous amount, it takes a team and trust to be able to open your life, to allow us to come in situations that aren't always the easiest. So it's a two-way street, and I thank you both, for working with us, because this film wouldn't be the same without either of you. So thank you so much. Misha, thank you. Does anybody have any questions?
Oh, yeah.
Where does it go? Where does the film go from here? And do you have anyone to distribute it? And is it streaming anywhere?
The film hasn't been picked up yet. This is the second festival. We just premiered the film. The world premiere was on Monday at the Tribeca Festival. We're going to take the film on a tour to at least 50 of the cities that are now part of this movement for guaranteed income. So that's really the next step, and in many ways that's very exciting. Michael Tubbs, who's the executive producer and you saw in the film, has raised some funds to take the film around and also sponsor a number of town hall meetings, panels, workshops, basically on reimagining the economy between now and Election Day. So that's actually a very exciting prospect for the film. The next screening probably will be in St. Paul in mid-July, and then hopefully in Cambridge in September, but we're putting a whole schedule together. And eventually it will be, on some streaming platform or cable, but this is kind of our focus now between now and the election, is to actually bring it into communities that are experimenting this and have a dialogue with, the community. And there's also European interest, because this movement is not just happening here in the United States. There's a lot of stuff happening in Europe. So we've gotten interest from a number of European countries about the film, so it may end up going overseas also.
As you set out to make the film, What did you think to yourself in terms of success? Were you like, I really hope it achieves this? What would that be?
Well, I think as the comments were said at the beginning of the film, that most people don't hear about this, don't know anything about it. I mean, sadly, we live in a culture where, you know, what we hear about the economy usually comes from either Wall Street or Washington, D.C. The debt crisis was the last thing we heard, and cutting Social Security, cutting Medicaid. So you wouldn't even know that there's almost a subterranean movement of 100 communities around the United States experimenting with like a radically different concept. So I think that's number one, is just introducing the idea, but having the participants introduce the idea, really. And those were the two ideas we started with. You know, honestly, I think the biggest challenge in doing a film like this is you want to make the characters who are here, some of them, three-dimensional, real, authentic, and yet, and there's so many dramas going on in their lives where you draw the line, you know, on how deep to dive in each of their lives. You don't want it to just be a didactic, oh, I got $500, isn't that great, you know. So that was always a trick, and there's only so many characters you can, you know, carry, or an audience like yourselves is open to following and getting involved in their lives. So there were other cities we wanted to go to. New Orleans was very much a community because they were focused just on at-risk youth, which was certainly an idea that we were very interested in. So, you know, obviously we couldn't go everywhere. So I think it was just introduce the idea, have the authentic voices of people who are living it, tell those stories, and have enough room that you can become involved in their lives. So it's not just, oh, how was it today? How was it today? You know, survey of what, like you see on local news or national news, but it was a movie. I think those were the goals.
And can you talk a little more about like choosing these particular stories? Because you have like you have a structure in mind, but obviously you have to find participants who are willing to share so deeply with you.
That is true, huge. In a sense, the casting was somewhat self-selected in that these programs were, when they were set up, there was a small group, what was called a storytelling cadre, a group that had told the people running the program they were willing to speak to the media, local press. And so we were introduced to that group. So that was already self-selected. There were people that were ready and many who were excited about trying to explain what this was all about. Of course, you know, we went a little deeper. They may have, I don't know how John felt, I don't know how Portia felt, you know, in terms of, okay, no problem, we'll talk to the media, but all of a sudden where you're in your home, we're following you around, you know, we're pushing ourselves in sometimes situations that aren't that comfortable. And like Abby and Anders, the young couple from St. Paul, obviously moving in with their parents, is, you know, oh, do you really have to show that? It's kind of embarrassing. As he said, yeah, I thought that was a great analogy. You know, feels like we're on parole or probation, you know. And in that case, I mean, crazy enough, I told them, I said, hey, you shouldn't feel so bad. I'm doing the same thing. My daughter and son-in-law, and they're twins, are moving in with my wife and I, so don't feel so bad. I know what it's like. So, but that is a huge part of it, is the cast, and as I say, in a way they were self-selected, which made it a little easier.
Oh yes, please.
While I was watching the film, I appreciated the fact that the participants, as I was watching, I was thinking, these are people that were in my life. You know, these are people that I could be working with, who are neighbors, what have you, and again, that really made a good connection in the film. My question to you would be, if you were to do this project over, is there anything you would do differently starting out that you have learned from?
That's a very good question. I'm not sure. I mean, I think at least my approach to filmmaking is, I have a funny old saying that I learned as a kid as I started, which is follow the footage. Meaning that, you know, as you meet people, as you begin filming and working, you're already changing some of your ideas when you sit in an editing room and look at what you've got. As I said, there are a number of communities I wish we could have gotten to, and I think one of the biggest debates was whether we could fit Gainesville in the film, because Gainesville is obviously a little different, dealing with formerly incarcerated, and there was some feeling that this is an important program, but it doesn't belong in this film. Maybe you should do a short film, you know, about returning citizens. And we struggled with that to try to find a way to integrate it so it felt whole, part of this film, and not as a separate film. And so I would say that was like really the biggest challenge. I'm not sure I would do it differently. And I feel that we were very lucky in terms of the cast. Obviously, Lucille, who's not here tonight, but you know, who's a bus driver, and who Daphne and I met, you know, kind of right at the beginning. Again, the moving scene at the end of this film was almost accidental, in that was at the bus depot on lunch break, where she was calling the judge because we were hoping that we could go to the court, the civil, and get the adoption scene. And then it happened right on Zoom, on FaceTime. We didn't know that was going to happen. You know, some things happen by chance, and you've got to take advantage of them. And I'm sure no matter what other attack plan or, you know, kind of starting in mind goals, my approach is to be open to accidents, to be open to chance, to be open to kind of where characters may lead you that you didn't necessarily plan or expect. And I'm sure if I did it in 5 other cities, the same thing would happen. But I appreciate that question.
Thank you for this really wonderful film. I hope as many people as possible see it. In addition to the main participants who were the core of the story, it seemed to me there was another piece of this story, which is all of these mayors. And I didn't know whether that was something that you intended to be telling that story as well, or that kind of came through. But you know, there were many people I wasn't aware of, and it just seemed like this is a whole cadre of young, innovative, you know, incredible leaders, and the film tells that story.
Well,
too.
I appreciate that comment, because look at what we see on the national news every night. It's the total opposite, the geriocracy, you know, the just stagnant, paralyzed. That's a trick, because you don't want it to be a campaign commercial.
Right.
So we wanted to, you know, kind of not have, these are all powerful, and many of them are young leaders. We didn't want them to overpower the movie, or take it out, take the voices, or overpower the voices of the real people who were actually in the program. But I'm glad you felt that, because I felt that making the movie, is that, wow, again, I've focused on mayors because I'm very interested in how political and policy change actually works, and there's no better place to see it than with mayors. You can't see it with congresspeople and senators and governors and presidents. They're too far removed. But mayors are right there on the front line. So I did Brick City in Newark when Cory Booker was mayor. I did Chicagoland when Rahm Emanuel was mayor. I did Stockton on My Mind when Michael Tubbs was mayor in Stockton. So I'm very tuned into that, but even saying that, I was not aware that there was such a vast network all over the country, all different parts of the country, of young, innovative political leaders at a time that we just hear over and over again, you know, politics doesn't work, politics is corrupt, it's dysfunctional. There are, and I'm very glad that you felt that in the film, because that was certainly a goal, going back to your question, but had to try to not go too hard with it.
Yes.
So what comes next for the families, the participants in the movie?
Well, that
It was
is-
only a 2-year program, so.
That's a huge question, and I'm glad you asked it. First of all, in Cambridge, where John and his family are from, the mayor has made it a municipal policy. It's not a pilot anymore. It is now anybody who qualifies can get $500 a month. So that's a big step, no longer a pilot. At the same time, if you read the New York Times last week, there were two major pieces that there are states now all over the country that are considering really kind of the child tax credit approach. Since that was rejected, unfortunately, there are quite a number of states that are thinking of doing it on their own, basically helping families with children get ahead. And this is in almost every advanced industrial country. There is help from the government for families. And the idea in the United States, I just saw a quote by the Senator Johnson from Wisconsin, which I thought of when John said, you know, this idea that society shouldn't help children is kind of strange. Johnson was on a clip on the news 2 days ago where he said, it's not society's role to take care of children. You know, it's the family's role or the parents' role, but society has no role there. So that is sadly, he doesn't say that alone. There are many people that feel that. But the hopeful thing is that there are states across this country that are now considering, and Massachusetts, I think John was telling me, is one of them, of instituting on their own what would be like a child tax credit, where a family would get a certain amount of money for each child they had as a way of helping during this time of so much economic insecurity.
Time for one last up, please.
Sure. I don't know much about Wisconsin politics, but if my memory serves me well, Johnson makes his living off his wife and her family. So I don't know who's supporting him, number one. And number two, the local argument for trying to do this makes sense, but the mayors are saying, hey, look, we don't have the resources. So that the fight that people like Rosa DeLauro fought, my guess is for a long time to get that child tax credit in there. It drops the poverty rate by 50%, suggests that, you know, maybe another movie or something to look at, and like someone said at the beginning of this conversation, where's the class warfare? I'm not talking class warfare, but let's have people pay their taxes. So maybe that's where it goes.
Well,
I mean, that's a bit of a speech. I'm sorry, guys. But
No.
it got me going.
No, John is right, and I'll say this, that I think this hopefully will be a major issue in the 2024 election. In fact, I know that the Democratic Party, at least, is trying to bring back the child tax credit and put it in a centerpiece of kind of an economic policy debate. So you're right. In the end, and Senator Booker was kind of speaking to that, in terms of resources, and even Andrew Yang, you know, was saying basically we saw in the COVID crisis where the government under the Trump administration wrote us all checks, you know, when none of us could work and everybody was locked down. So that kind of opened a lot of minds to, hey, this is actually possible. But you're right. Ultimately, it's going to be a national question.
I'm so sorry that's all the time we have. Thank you,
Maureen.
Maureen.
For more information, you can check out ptownfilm.org or MediaWomenWorldwide.com for all of the coverage of this year's festival. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you'll see the next one.